So I'm taking a break from my daily walk. I got tired here. It's took a back alley off Lougheed. So I'm by a construction yard and an empty parking lot behind a used sporting goods stuff. And it's a fairly quiet alley. So as I walk, I'm ruminating on various things to do with the move and the lower mainland versus the canyon, including the kind of landscape that I'll be going for my walks in. Here I'm in this, here, like the alley I've just come from here. I've just come from there, right? So this is Maple Ridge, you know, back alley Maple Ridge. They're building a fancy thing here. That's just, some kind of, not seniors complex, something like that over there. And then one of those buildings is modular housing for people who'd been in the shelter in the tent city. And then the alley continues the other way, and that finally winds up somewhere else. Anyways, oh no, down here it goes. This goes down to where I'm headed to and over to there. And I'm going to go back out the street of the mall. So it'll be drier, other than that, but just the general atmosphere of people. But yeah, I don't know. I was listening to CBC as I was walking up the hill, as I always do. I should listen to too much to the National Propaganda Channel, otherwise dubbed by Alan Fotheringham as the Holy Mother Corporation. A very fitting term, because they're trying to mother us all, and well, especially inflict Toronto culture on us. That quote from People Talking Back haunts me. We don't hear about colonization in our media because our media is colonized. So why am I getting stuff about Toronto culture? Why am I getting the Toronto dialect of Canadian English as though that was the national standard English? Just because the CBC is headquartered there and CTV? Is that the only reason? I don't get it, you know? We're not a free country or fair country. We already know that, more and more of us. Some have always realized it. Older people, I realize now why. But, you know, just let this guy go by maybe. What he's doing, he's picking up stuff. You know, there'll be some of that up in the canyon. A lot of poor people in the canyon. Although I'll be in a rural area, you know, outside of Boston Bar. But Boston Bar even is pretty rural. Kind of like North Bend. If I could find a place in North Bend to move into, yeah. A house where they get a piano, oh yeah. I could happily live in North Bend, even with the trains. It's beautiful, it's historic, you know. Well, yeah, so anyways, the reason I'm bitching about Toronto in our media, Toronto colonizing the rest of the country economically and politically, and media, as was pointed out during People Talking Back in 1976 by a guy from the Edmonton group who were the main hosts, that we don't hear about colonization in our media because our media is colonized. So it's just little things sometimes, like the pronunciation of primer in Toronto versus primer here. Things like that, or this nonsense about Vancouver, native Vancouverites saying Vancouver. Oh, hell no. That's some kind of preppy hipster affectation that came along before the millennials did with the wave of you guys moving out here. Thank you. No, that's not how we say it. Thank you. I was British Columbian. So anyway, the one that twigged me off today was we were listening to a very interesting, good documentary on which the CBD does. I do good work, but I wish they'd have more than just Toronto thinkers on it, you know, and guest shows in Toronto, and everything's based out of Toronto, and all about Toronto. Here in Vancouver, all about Toronto, and Lillooet, all about Toronto. You know, anywhere you go, all about Toronto, right? So there you go. Those are our national networks for you. And APTN is a great network. What's going on in Burns Lake, they're covering. It turns out that thing that does all the hotel rooms being booked up, no, that wasn't true, although there is a major mobilization going on, and there's a support camp for the Unistoten, and all of the Skiksan chiefs are on side with that. So that's your media back east that's not telling you nothing about that, is it? You know, or what happened in BC in 1993. Did you even hear about what happened at Gustafson Lake, one of the largest paramilitary operations in Canadian history? You didn't hear about it east of the Rockies, did you? See, that's Canada for you. It's called the Granite Curtain, and the Great Firewall of Canada keeps the rest of the world from knowing, or they just find ways of PRing it away and just shrugging it off, which is what John Horgan is doing right now too. I didn't want to talk about that set of politics, but I did want to, you know, the whole context of things here is very different. You know, the media landscape. So our media is colonized in such a way that there's not fair and adequate coverage of happening news, especially fair to the victims of the authorities, be they bureaucratic victims. You know, other than they do sob stories about cancers and children getting difficulties with the process and whatever. And yeah, it's awful that there's kids on the street. And why is that? Well, let's go back to that people in the glass towers things. Glass towers, they live in glass houses, and they throw a lot of stones at those people up there. Not the ones that don't live here, but their proxies here do. They sure do. They threw a lot of stones during the referendum campaign. Yeah, well, those who live in glass houses, who throw stones, we know what happens to them, don't we? So let's break the colonization of the media in Canada, people. I don't know who else is in other provinces, you know, but that we need to say, okay, why was it today? And just simple things like what I wanted to mention. The thing that twigged me off about this today was listen to this thing on Beckett. Very good documentary, thank you CBC, and maybe it is the Irish pronunciation, but that just says that we have a different pronunciation out here, because in high school and at university, and everybody that I know pronounces Samuel Beckett's play as Waiting for Godot, not Godot. Now, maybe when he's speaking in Irish, I haven't heard Beckett pronounce it, you know, but maybe when he's speaking in Irish, he says it Godot. But he's lived in France for a long time, and that spelling would be Godot, you know. Anyways, on parle français aussi. Je me sens de faire vidéos comme ceci pour les Français, aussi de la histoire de la Colombie-Britannique, aussi des politiques de France, aussi de Colombie-Britannique et du Canada, et de nos voisins sud. Okay, I just did my little bilingual contribution to our national identity. I'm one of the few Franco-Colombians who can speak French and likes to, right? So I am French on my great-grandfather's side, so my soul is with the French, even though the family had to leave. The story goes that they had to leave France because of one of the revolutions. They were Orleanists, so I have to look up what year that is. 1830, I'm not sure, somewhere in there. So anyways, but yeah, the soul of the revolution calls to me. It's funny how it is. It's very un-Quebecer, actually. Quebecers, they booked out of, they have their own revolution, but they booked out of the French Revolution and the 66 Commune because the Catholic Church told them to shut up, right? So, but here we've also got our national media telling us to shut up. Be good little consumers. Don't be concerned about the military, the national paramilitary called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And that's what they are. They're a paramilitary organization that gets police contracting. They do it abroad, too. They're a paramilitary force. And their original charter, as the Royal Northwest Mounted Police said, they were founded to subdue the West. And I can't remember the wording about the Indians. And Johnny MacDonald and the RCMP's recommendation, it's all nice and portrayed, and, you know, Nelson Eddy singing in the mountains, you know, and then musical ride. It's all like squeaky clean, and boy, don't they look great on the postcards. Oh, not after Gustafson Lake, they don't. Not after Red Sucker Lake, they don't. Not after. No, I can't blame them for the Oka. That was SQ. And then our military, you know. And we won't get into that right now. Right? But, you know, we're not the country we claim to be to the world, and that's what the Great Firewall of Canada is. It's our national press kit of being the Mr. National Nice Guy. And Mr. Trudeau is just Mr. Harper with literally, quite literally, with nicer hair and youth appeal, but they're about the same age. He's all marketing. He's our Trump. He's the same thing. That's why they got along so well, except that Trudeau is, you know, from upper class Montreal and the very high elites, and he knows how to deal with ultra wealth because he was bounced on their fucking knee growing up. You gotta bleep me. I gotta bleep myself for these videos, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, I speak like a longshoreman, but I have the education of 20 academics. I'm the UnProfessor. You know, when I have the glasses off because one of my eyes is walled right, or it doesn't work right. Michael One Eye, after Odin, you know. But I don't care. You call me what you want. But I know a lot of history. I'm trying to share it with young British Columbians and people interested in British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest in our history. And there is more to be said about this, but always the politics here is history, and it has to do with history as to why things are the way they are, and why the resource industrial parties, and why the party system has a lockdown on British Columbia altogether in general. You know, but that why also we are bonded to Ottawa, you know, and why it was, like my friend Don Marshall has a new paper out, it's on his Insight page. It's on the Orca, rather. It's on the Orca, on their little news thing. And it's about Premier Walkham's, the attempt to secede. Not the attempt to secede, the declaration that they'd secede if they didn't get what they wanted. Well, they didn't. They eventually got what they wanted, but they didn't get the way they wanted. BC's terms of unions were fraudulent. Mackenzie rejected them. You know, the rest of Canada doesn't know this. BC almost seceded, but what Ottawa said was, well, you know, Vancouver Island's welcome to go on its own, but we're going to hang on to the mainland. And this is Canada behaving already as like they've already decided how well things are going to be. And Dufferin, as Governor General, it turns out, Dufferin, we don't think of Governor Generals as taking political action, but Dufferin was the one who said that. Dufferin, he wasn't delivering the Queen's message. He wasn't delivering the Prime Minister's message. That, well, maybe the Queen's message, but the Imperial message, certainly that of the Home Office, or whatever, the Secretary of the Colonies. You know, I think that's part of the Home Office. Whitehall, I think. I'm making a vlog. I'll cross the street, get away from these guys.
I'll just go tell Marie and see what she thinks, and I guess if she's like...
So, it's a fairly busy street. There is a little diner there that's quite popular. I'm walking to go see my friends at the gym, and if the bookstore is open here, I might go see them. Just to see what's in there to take up the canyon with me. I should go see McLeod's books and get some things. Anyways. But we're dealing with a situation in Canada where you don't get to know the truth. As young people, you don't get to know the truth about current events. Important current events that are going on in the country are kept from you. And they're kept from the young woman from Toronto who's only been here a year and didn't want to vote in the referendum because she didn't know enough. And I told her, your history is being kept from you and from the other newcomers, no matter where they're from, and from the young people here, so that it can all be the same crap can be pulled all over again. And you know, about the Liberal Party being not just, you know, there are the resource industrial unionites in the one government we have that's kind of blackmailing the Greens right now, is my opinion, right? To be good, play nice Greens, or we're just gonna whatever, you know. Okay, well, yeah, okay, we see what big party politics is all about. I'm tired of it myself. I want to see the whole party system shattered. It was only introduced here in 1903. I always think things were better before then, you know. But the whole point is that the resource industrial things, it's not a question for the one party just is interested in jobs for their union members, you know, and for their loyal members of the party, and for the grease machine. Bill Thielemann and the grease machine. He's part of the grease machine, just like any number of this whole establishment that Eric Bornman, you know, that whole group of people, Bruce Clark, you know, with Christie's brother, lobbyists. Kinsella, you know, the lobbyists. It was all protected. The FPT was protected. The media was controlled. There was a web campaign. There was big money on this. Where do you think that money went? It didn't go into billboards now, did it? And what? Cambridge Analytica, where'd they go? Yeah, okay. Anyway, I won't get into all that, but that's British Columbia politics for you. It's been surreal since I was young. And I've watched it get more and more surreal. We had vetted Reaganism before Reaganism came along. Very seriously, I'm not just joking. And I said to the woman from Toronto, you know, that she lives here now, here for a year, but she, you know, the national nostrum that Quebec is the most corrupt province. Oh no, Quebec doesn't even conceive of what the British Columbia government is built upon. The whole system of grease and the payola machine, the business as usual of the BC rail revelations, you know. This has gone on since colonial times, since the chartering of the colony, and ever since the liberal capitalists, as they were called, but the liberal, those who were espousing what were called liberal policies, meaning free enterprise capitalism, no respect at all for native rights. Came out of California. They were Britons. They came in. They took over the colony. They dominated the Yale Convention, which led to the unification with Canada. The reality is, as I'll say to Dan, I might as well say it now, Dan. You know, it's nice to say that you walk and, whoa, we have this nice idea that British Columbia might have been independent, but was Britain going to send in troops? And it wasn't Canada that desperately needed the resources of the Pacific Slope, other than the CPR, who did want all the minerals of the Pacific Slope. Oh God, yeah, the railway belt, which is partly why they also built the Southern Main Line, so as to get another railway belt. It's also one of the reasons the Esquimalt and the Nanaimo line got built in the first place, to get the railway belt. All the minerals, all the trees, oh God, yeah. And then Macmillan Bodell, which was that arm of their forestry arm, that eventually got all the rest of the forest in the province in 1976 with the Forest Act for Bill Bennett, after MacLeod paid Bill Bennett's election campaign in '75. The history of the province is built on grease. We got the Grease Trail. Yeah, that's a national monument, that name. That really, we really got, that's our provincial emblem, but it's an emblem of free trade between the natives. Free trade, I don't know, yeah, but there was slaving between the coast and the interior, but the grease that was carried, the Oolican grease that was traded in the interior, is valuable fish product that's highly nutritious and no longer in that abundant, although still in the native diet on the coast, and it's valuable like Houcham is. Houcham is soapberry, which is a plant that grows in the interior. I love Houcham. It's a kidney tonic. Anyway, but yeah, British Columbia history, there's so much here. This is what the Kelly from Toronto said. She's so much history here. So that's why I started talking in politics, asked about the referendum. The point about with the referendum is that they weren't given a fair chance to vote. There's been no adequate history of this province. The media here are colonized. Back to this media colonization. Where are our media owned? Well, where they're managed. Okay, sure, they got offices in Vancouver, the Sun, and the province. And where did those publishers and editors come from? Where did the colonists come from? And are there any there that have any kind of, progressive element? No, there's not a single one west of the Great Lakes, and there hasn't been in over 25 or 30 years. Right? This goes pretty much for the CBC too. Like, why does Rex Murphy get a spot? CBC, I challenge you. I won't insult him directly, but he deserves several. But Rex Murphy, you give him a little show for a little spout off on rank conservative absurdities, hatred. I hear him, Rex Murphy is hatred. So CBC and Rick Mercer, he was a tame genius who had a yoke put on him, and he had to do softball interviews with politicians. Same with Strombo. They weren't allowed to be the journalists that they could have been in the United States. This is Canada. This is part of the Great Firewall. Asking about the truth and making the truth happen in Canada is not allowed in the media. Our media has been colonized by Toronto. And who owns Toronto? Who owns the Toronto Globe and Mail? I'm not sure. But the Financial Post Network, which owns NatPo, the National Post chain, Financial Post financial paper, Conrad Black's baby when he was still a citizen. I don't know if he is again now, but he's allowed to live here, which he shouldn't be. Since he left the country, renounced his citizenship, and then he said, oh, is this a time for, oh, can I come back? Harper's in power. Now he's in control again at the NatPo as emeritus. He has this asshole call it, I hate him and his wife, Barbara Neal. Everybody hates him. But he has like a national stump. He gets to stand up and bullshit. He has a big man in a fancy suit and slick talk, but it's all slick talk full of sleazy lies and sleazy bad history. He proclaims himself an intellectual. He is a joke as an intellectual. People might say that I am too, but I've actually know my shit. And what I hear out of Conrad is nothing more than slime and propaganda and justification for richesse and noblesse and pretense that somehow their way of thinking is superior to all us lower forms of life. This goes for the British Columbia Liberals too. This brings us back to corruption in British Columbia. That we're dealing with a media system where the system here, the Sun and the Province and the Times colonists, being part of the NatPo chain, they're controlled by a conservative New York hedge fund. And they had a lot to do with our referendum, including allowing the BC Forest Products boss to buy a pre-campaign ad covering all the newspapers in the province. This goes for Black Press too, right? There's criminal conspiracy to me, morally criminal conspiracy to me between the conservative media, including the Black Press chain, including Glacier Media seems to be a fence-sitter. I don't so, but I think they're liberals too, right? And the Star is useless. Its Vancouver incarnation is useless. The Georgia Strait has been neutered by threats of and domination by Charlie Smith for too long. It was not the paper it was when Dan McLeod was publishing it in the 70s, but he got beaten 3 times by the authorities here. He's not the only person in this province. He's not the only one that's had political beatings. All right. So anyways, the Strait is not what it used to be. The Strait is not what it used to be, and the Tyee is a joke. The Tyee is a unionite joke. And where's the coverage of the Gilets Jaunes and the progressive media in North America? I don't know. Is it that why is it in RT? Well, it is in RT, so you'd think, the thing is that Amy Goodman and Cenk Wigger are doing the same thing and the Gilets Jaunes about portraying it as violence. Yeah, there is some violence. It does make for great media, but they're not telling you what the meaning of the revolution is. They're not spreading the ideas of the revolution. The ideas of the French Revolution right now are incendiary. They're like the ones they're literally the ones of peace, equality, liberty, fraternity. They've added peace to it too, right? They want France to be a pacifist state. They don't want military involvement outside of France. So this is, yeah, a direct threat to the existence of NATO is what's going on. This is why, of course, the Security Council is sitting on it. The stack was globalist. Putin's not going to do anything, even though we would love to see Macron fall, or have to resign, you know. But if Macron wants to try, this was his demo for a European army. It's failing. The people in France have said no. Act 8 was amazing. The one guy in Bordeaux, he took his shirt off and he knelt down before the hoses of the water cannon, and he just took it and he did like the kneel, like the American football player too. Put his knee down, put his head down, took the water cannon, kept on taking it. And what's our media doing? Oh, talking about union politics, or I don't know. I haven't looked at the Tyee headline in 3 weeks. It's a useless piece of junk. David Beers, if you hear me say that, that's because of you hanging up on me that day. Because you didn't want to listen to somebody who was angry about something that needed to be covered. Because you're an establishment. Oh, you have to learn how to talk to the media. Why talk to the media when I can talk to the public myself? When I don't need you filtering what I say and saying, well, here's how you have to write it, and we might think about paying you if you're a good little boy. Oh yeah, is that what the Canadian media does? Yeah, it's exactly what it does. Left or right, progressive. So people, liberate your media, liberate your data. This is digital TNN men. You know, it's what I'm doing. I'm taking on the world. I found out I could have done this live. I just thought about it on YouTube. I've got to do that next time. Why didn't I think about that? Is why I bought data. I'll start the upload and I'll get it done. Because that's why I bought the data. But I'll go to the Wi-Fi to upload the data and have a coffee somewhere. Our media has been colonized. And it all got twigged off, this comment. I've been boiling in me for a while. I've been thinking about it a lot, right? But then when I heard this, waiting for Godot instead of Godot. Now, maybe we got it wrong here in British Columbia, but there are original dialects, you know, and in Wikipedia, Canadian English is under siege, but people don't realize that the British and the Americans are largely in control of what goes on Canadian articles, and largely conservatives, especially when it comes to political articles. I should name certain Albertans, but it also had to do with like being regressive about the native advances and acceptance of native names for themselves. We're regressed by an Albertan, you know, and I was ejected because I objected to there being too many articles on Harper. That's why I'm no longer on Wikipedia. So I'm the UnProfessor now since, you know, but I've discovered vlogging. I enjoy doing it. You're not around getting my Patreon yet, or my dentures, you know, but our media has been colonized. The same way our economy has been colonized. And although I've got a diner there, it's themed in Canadian too, Canadian style, Bobby socks. But we have the Langley Farm Market, but all the buildings here, the style of life is all very much American. It's a wet California. This was California in the Spanish mind, by the way. This was the same way this is British Columbia, the British sector of Columbia. This is also British California. It was actually, I thought it was a joke when I came up with it back in the 70s. But no, someone in colonial times used it as well to describe the area. And certainly that's true of the Gulf. The Gulf is lovely. The Gulf is lovely. Too conservative for me. And the hippies here are conservative. Hello, ma'am. I'm going to cross low heat, so I'm going to stop talking for a sec as I do. Or maybe I won't. I'll just walk the sidewalk. Got to walk a little fast because, yeah, I'm getting better on the cane, but I'm going to the gym to say hi to the boys because I'm moving up country, right? I was hoping to go train again in a few months. I signed out of it a couple months ago. So, anyways, it's been good to me this walk. That's why I got out. It's sunny. That's why what got me thinking about talking about moving to the canyon was because it was sunny here. And it was raining up there. It's a wetter part of the canyon farther up the canyon, but that's good because it also means it's cooler. And it's not below the Anderson River Group. No, those are immediately east of Hell's Gate. I looked on the map. Hell's Gate's quite a bit south relative to where I thought they were, but still they're accessible. So I'll get up there somehow. And yeah, up Scuzzy Creek you get up, I think it's Scuzzy Creek you get up over into Harrison Lake, so there's a hot spring up in there. Anyways, our media is colonized, our landscape is colonized, our economy is colonized. There's a Dollarama behind me, for example. See, and I go there a lot, I do, you know. And the mall has a Thrifties, which is a Canadian food chain, I believe. And that hideous blue factory-looking like thing that you think would be a pulp factory or a pulp mill or something, or some kind of warehouse, yeah, that's an arts and cultural center. That's the idea of architecture in Canada for public facility. And at the far end of the mall, you can't see it. Haney Place Mall, there's Ardene's, that's a big chain. That big red brick there, that's the Walmart. And it's eating the heart out of downtown. There's convenience stores, another one a block east of here, one block south. You have nowhere next to it. It's a money sucker, but it does employ a lot of people also. It doesn't employ as many people as a whole bunch of small retailers would have, but that's the nature of the modern economy. But that's because we've been colonized. We've been colonized by the wealthy, and now the global wealthy who the world are standing up to in France, who the people of France are standing up to, and man, are they standing up. You know, they're not stopping. They're not afraid of the bullets anymore. That one guy hammering the CRS off the pedestrian bridge in Paris, he jumped down in front of the crowd that was already attacking them and driving them back, and he jumped down. He just started coming at them with his big guy. He was hammering on them from above with his fists. And even when somebody fired a grenade gun or whatever they fired off behind him, didn't even flinch, just kept on coming. They're all tired of this bullshit. Same as the guy with the hose, right? And the woman, I saw some woman being arrested. I see lawyers after lawyers going intervening in arrests and saying, stop, let those people out of the van, Macron is running a police state, or trying to. I don't know where all these young people are that are willing to do this, to be this obedient to injustice. That's the thing that really bothers me watching that. It's the same here, people being really complacent about people seeing poor and sleeping on the street, and still making money from allowing people to make money from greasing houses. You know, just by buying one and sitting on it, you get your investment. Okay, I get it, equity, fine, you have to do that to protect yourself. But that whole system was built up to exclude a whole bunch of people that could never afford anything, and that's what we have. That's why we need a universal basic income. That's why we needed a PR government to bring in the Green Party to make it happen. Now the Green Party, well, we'll see what happens, you know. Nanaimo could change everything. I can't take part in the campaign. I've got my move to do, and the party doesn't pay me for my intelligence. And they've used me for, never mind, I won't go into it. But anyway, I'm right outside the gym. I'm going to finish and then maybe come back on a second vlog, but I'm going to do it directly live. The UnProfessor, Mike Clevin, signing off from beautiful downtown Maple Ridge, British Columbia. And it's scenic parking lots. This is Selkirk, I think, the street behind me, and that's Lougheed Highway over there. Anyways, good afternoon.